Naramchaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Srinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Vidyantastohya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashtapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, I don't know if that speaker's on outside, but whoever wants to conquer, please report to Bhagavatam class. It's the very means of conquest.
You try.
Yeah.
They're not there.
Please report on the double. Okay. So we have a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, entitled The Lord in the Heart, text 27.
You
Yeah.
want to say to Prashad?
What's this?
I think we'll be okay. Prashadam.
I'm not going to jump up. This is all wrong the way we're doing, so I'm going to jump up now and
We'll be okay. Thank you, my friend.
it's all cancel Bhagavatam class and go say Prashadam.
I will go do it.
Okay.
We're okay.
Very easy. Okay. Na. Yatra. Shoko. Na. Jara. Na. Mrityur. Na yatra shoko na jara na mrityur. Nartir. Na. Kodavega. Rite. Kutaschit. Nartir na kodavega rite kutaschit. Yach. Chit. Tato. Da. Kripayanidam. Vidam. Yach chit tato da kripayanidam vidam. Duranta. Dukha. Prabhavanudarshanat. Duranta Dukha Prabhavanudarshanat. Did I do the third line all together? I don't know if I did that or not. Nayatra Shoko Najara Namrityur. Nartir Nakod Vega Rite Kutaschit. Yachit Tato Da Kripayani Dam Vidam. Duranta Dukha Prabhavanudarshanat. Nayatra Soko Najarana Mrityur. Nartir Nakod Vega Rite Kutaschit. Yachit Tato Da Kripayani Dam Vidam. Duranta Dukha Prabhavanudarshanat. Nayatra Shoko Najarana Mrityur.
Nayatra Shoko Najara Namrityur
Nartir Nakod Vega Rite Kutaschit.
Natir Najo Vega Rite.
Have I been saying Code Vega? Chod Vega. I just heard myself. Yachchit Tato Da Kripayani Dam Vidam.
Yachita Toda Yipanyam.
Duranta Dukkha Prabhavanu Darshana.
Duranta Dukkha Prabhavana.
There's the last one third on audience, just like that. I should have talking to somebody. Okay. Word meanings. Na.
Never.
What?
You don't want us to repeat?
Oh, I'm distracted by everybody reading.
Yeah.
What's going on? Okay, yes, please do. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Mom.
Apologies.
Nayatra Shoka Najara Namrityur
Nayatra Soka Najarana Mityur.
Nati Nachodvega Rite Kutaschit
Natir Chodriga Richard.
Yachitta Toda Kripayani Dam Vidam
Yachita Toda Kripanyam Vidam.
Duranta Dukkha Prabhavanu Darshana
Duranta Dukkha Prabhavana.
Okay, only one other person here. Come on, try it.
Nayatra Soko Najarana Mrityur. Natir na Chod Vega Rita Shakuch Tashat.
Nati Nachodvega Rite Kutaschit
Yaschita Toda Kripayani Dam Vidam.
Yachchit
Toda Kripayani Dam Vidam
Duranta Dukkha Pavanudasanat.
Duranta Dukkha Prabhavanu Darshanat.
Goodness, you did it perfect.
Yes,
You did it perfect. Anybody else wants to try? Okay, nobody else wants to try. Okay, so word meanings. Na. Never.
Never.
Yatra.
Yatra. There are.
Shoka.
Soka.
Bereavement.
Bereavement.
Na.
Nor.
Jara. Old age.
Old age.
Na.
Nor.
Mrityu.
Death.
Na.
Nor.
Artahi.
Pains.
Na.
Nor. Cha. Also. Udvegaha. Anxieties. Rite. Save and accept. Kutaschit. Sometimes. Yat. Because of. Chit. Consciousness. Tataha. Therefore. Adaha. Compassion. Kripaya. Out of heartfelt sympathy.
An idam vidam. Of those who are ignorant of the process of devotional service. Duranta. Unsurpassable. Dukkha. Misery.
Prabhava.
Repeated birth and death.
Anudarshanat.
By successive experience. Translation and purport by Sir Graces of Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
In that planet of Satyaloka, there is neither bereavement nor old age nor death. There is no pain of any kind, and therefore there are no anxieties, save that sometimes, due to consciousness, there is a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, who are subjected to unsurpassable miseries in the material world. Please repeat. In that planet of Satyaloka, there is neither bereavement, nor old age, nor death. There is no pain of any kind. And therefore there are no anxieties. Save that sometimes, Due to consciousness, there's a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, who are subjected to unsurpassable miseries in the material world. Okay, purport. Foolish men of materialistic temperament do not take advantage of successive authorized knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is authorized and is acquired not by experiment, but by authentic statements of the Vedic literatures explained by bona fide authorities. Simply by becoming an academic scholar, one cannot understand the Vedic statements. One has to approach the real authority who has received the Vedic knowledge by disciplic succession, as clearly explained in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Lord Krishna affirmed that the system of knowledge as explained in the Bhagavad Gita was explained to the sun god, and the knowledge descended by disciplic succession from the sun god to his son Manu, and from Manu to King Ikshvaku, the forefather of Lord Ramachandra. And thus, the system of knowledge was explained down the line of great sages one after another. But in due course of time, the authorized succession was broken. And therefore, just to reestablish the true spirit of the knowledge, the Lord again explained the same knowledge to Arjuna, who was a bona fide candidate for understanding due to his being a pure devotee of the Lord. Bhagavad Gita, as it was understood by Arjuna, is also explained in Bhagavad Gita 10, 12, 13. It's an awkward sentence here, but that means Arjuna spoke his understanding. Bhagavad Gita, as it was understood by Arjuna, is also explained. That's where Arjuna explained his understanding in 12 and 13, 10, 12, and 13. But there are many foolish men who do not follow in the footsteps of Arjuna in understanding the spirit of Bhagavad Gita. Maybe I should stop right there and go to that one. Read it so that we don't break that train of thought. Let's see. Let's go from here. Which is, Arjuna said, "You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages, such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, confirm this truth about you. And now you yourself are declaring it to me." So this is just saying this is how Arjuna understood it and expressed it. And it wasn't just he himself, but he's also going by authorities. He's quoting all the authorities. Because sometimes if we independently understand something, we might be right or we might be wrong. So even with the best of intentions, we may be a little off. So we quote the authorities too. And as long as we're in agreement with them, then we know it's all right. But there are many foolish men who do not follow in the footsteps of Arjuna in understanding the spirit of Bhagavad Gita. They create instead their own interpretations, which are as foolish as they themselves, and thereby only help to put a stumbling block on the path of real understanding, misdirecting the innocent followers who are less intelligent, or the Shudras. It is said that one should become a Brahmana before one can understand the Vedic statements. And this stricture is as important as the stricture that no one shall become a lawyer who is not qualified himself as a graduate. Such a stricture is not an impediment in the path of progress for anyone and everyone, but it is necessary for an unqualified understanding of a particular science. Vedic knowledge is misinterpreted by those who are not qualified Brahmanas. A qualified Brahmana is one who has undergone strict training under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So I will finish reading this purport, which is one more paragraph. But this is one of the important points I want to discuss. What is this qualified Brahmana? So I don't know, do we have to be that or not or what? So, Vedic wisdom guides us to understanding our relation with the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and to acting accordingly in order to achieve the desired result of returning home back to Godhead. But materialistic men do not understand this. They want to make a plan to become happy in a place where there is no happiness. For false happiness, they try to reach other planets, either by Vedic rituals or by spacecraft, when they should know for certain that any amount of materialistic adjustment for becoming happy in a place which is meant for distress cannot benefit the misguided man because, after all, the whole universe with all its paraphernalia will come to an end after a certain period.
Can you read that sentence again?
It's a long sentence. Let's see, I think it goes all the way up here. For false happiness, they try to reach other planets, either by Vedic rituals or by spacecraft. But they should know for certain that any amount of materialistic adjustment for becoming happy in a place which is meant for distress cannot benefit the misguided man, because, after all, the whole universe with all its paraphernalia will come to an end after a certain period. Follow that time? It's really a long sentence. Did you get it that time?
I got it that
Helps
trying to make a materialistic adjustment to become happy in a place where there's no happiness is a misguided endeavor for the misguided man.
Yeah. Then all plans of materialistic happiness will automatically come to an end. The intelligent person, therefore, makes a plan to return home back to Godhead. Such an intelligent person surpasses all the pangs of material existence, like birth, death, disease, and old age. He is actually happy because he has no anxieties of material existence, but is a compassionate sympathizer. He feels unhappiness for the suffering materialistic men, and thus he occasionally comes before the materialistic man to teach them the necessity of going back to Godhead. All the bona fide acharyas preach this truth of returning home back to Godhead, and warn men not to make a false plan for happiness in a place where happiness is only a myth. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of the knowledge, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, you know what, I'm so lucky I got this verse. It's always been sort of dear to me. I've always really kind of love this verse about this compassion. So I'm really happy I get to talk about this. So first I think I'll talk about this question of the Brahmana. It says here, you have to become a Brahmana, which after we talk about Varnashram, we aren't all Brahmanas. So what does this mean? They said one should become a Brahmana before one can understand the Vedic statements. It's really important. So, what's a Brahmana then? Start whenever something is a question, start with the definition. So the definition of a Brahmana, well, there's different ones, but you could say there's almost like a material definition and a spiritual definition. Because in the Bhagavad Gita glossary, it gives what could be kind of a material, it's not really, but sort of like a material definition, in the sense that we have material propensities and so on. So Brahmana, a member of the most intelligent class of men according to the 4 Vedic occupational divisions of society. I would suggest that's not an adequate definition, because there's another dimension. There's a spiritual dimension, and here's another. Let's see, I can find it in my notes. Okay, so Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 8:36 in the purport, it's quoting Bhagavad Gita at 9:32, which is one where they have lower birth, with that women Vaishyas Shudras, they can still, if they take to my devotional service, they can still attain the highest. So, see, I'm not good at quoting. Let's see, I didn't write it down, so I'm not saying it right. So anyway, but this one is in the purport. It says, a Brahmana is considered to be on the highest platform because he knows Brahman, the absolute truth. And then it goes on to say the second caste, the Kshatriya caste, also knows Brahman, but not as well as the Brahmanas. The Vaishyas and Shudras do not clearly understand God consciousness, but if they take to Krishna consciousness by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master, they do not remain in the lower castes. Papa Yona, to explain that, we have to actually find this. 9:32. I'm going to read the verse itself, so I can't quote to save my life. So it says, the Sanskrit is Mamhi Parta Vyapasritya Yepi Sya Papa Yonaya Sriyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras Tepi Yanti Parangatim. So it says Papa Yonaya means
lower family.
Born of a lower family, could be that. Born of a lower caste. Okay, it's clearly stated that okay, take Pi Yanti Param Gatim at the end of the verse. It means it can attain the supreme destination. So born in a lower class, you can attain the supreme destination. So the English says, Osana-prita, those who take shelter in me, although they be of lower birth, women, vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras workers, can attain the supreme destination. Those who take shelter in me. How do you take shelter of Krishna if you don't know? So the purpose of the Brahmanas in society is to teach everybody to be the spiritual kind of Brahmana, where you know what Brahman is, you know the absolute truth, and you can take shelter. So materially we may have different propensities. And some people may want to study and some people may not. Some people may require it handed to them real simple. And that's all right, because as long as you get it, it doesn't really matter a bit if you like to study extensively or if you accept it in simple form. As long as you accept it, as long as you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Brahman and we should surrender to him, and then we can go back to Godhead. So here's another one, Bhagavad Gita 10, 4-5, and that was, I think, mentioned in this, this is 10.5. Lower down in the purport, it says, a Brahmana is supposed to devote his whole life to understanding Brahman. Brahma janati brahmanaha. One who knows Brahman is called a Brahmana. So it continues, thus charity is offered to the Brahmanas because they're always engaged in higher spiritual service and have no time to earn their livelihood. In the Vedic literature, charity is also to be awarded to sannyasis. Sannyasis beg from door to door, not for money, but for missionary purposes. So one who knows Brahman. So a sannyasi also is the topmost. And sannyasi, like really only the Brahmanas should really take sannyas. So a sannyasi is the topmost among the Brahmanas. So anyway, essentially it is the same thing. So they're about giving to the society. So that's why they should get charity. Not because they're kind of special and so they should sit back and receive. But because they are dedicating their life to giving and they're giving the highest. So in order to allow them the peace and peacefulness of not struggling for your very life because you're dying of hunger or something, they're given charity and allowed to, or they don't have to go get a job or something like that. So they're supposed to be given charity so they can continue to give to society this highest, give this education. So why do we have to be Brahmanas? It's said in this verse, in this purport today, we have to become Brahmanas. And everybody is not a Brahmana. So do we have a quandary? So everybody is not a Brahmana in the sense of the Varnashram system. But what is the purpose of having Brahmanas in a Varnashram system if they can't teach and elevate the whole system? So in the spiritual sense, everybody is supposed to become a Brahmana. Even if you still make baskets or something. Even if you're still a bricklayer. Even if you're still cow protecting person or something. It doesn't matter if you are a big scholar. It matters if you understand what the scholarship is supposed to teach you. And everybody has equal access to that. In that sense, in the sense of knowing what is Brahman, we should all become Brahmanas. And that's really the mood in which we're all given Brahman initiation. Of course, twice-born initiation is for the three higher castes anyways. But sometimes in ISKCON, a lot of people are really Shudra by nature. They like to maybe fix things or make things or it's like that. So it makes no difference. You can still get Brahman initiation because everybody can get this higher understanding and be Brahmana in the sense of knowing what is Brahman. And we're supposed to teach it once we know this. Once we really know and experience what is Brahman, then our material anxieties start to recede because the externals don't matter so much. We know what the truth is. And as our material anxieties start to recede, we have room for compassion for others. So we start to see, those people don't know this. And that's why they're all upset about this, like that. So we start wanting, in small ways or big ways, maybe we can, just a little way, maybe we dedicate our lives to preaching or something, but we start wanting to give. So in Satyaloka, they don't experience anxiety or pain or old age or disease or anything. Am I correct? I think I understand that they just go back to God and when it's time to wrap up the universe, right? They don't have to die till then. They don't have anything like that. Is that correct? Do I have the right understanding? Shudevi?
I think so.
Yeah. So that's why they have no fear. But they have some feeling. They know about people below who don't understand this. So they have some feeling of compassion. And this is really, somehow this is kind of a verse that's dear to me, that they have no pain themselves, but they have compassion. So we have a term for that. Paraduka duki. I looked it up and found what it's written about. Paraduka duki. Para means above. Dukkha means miseries and sorrow. Paraduka duki. Above misery, above feeling distress, but feeling distress. How's that? So here's the verse. I found it in Srimad Bhagavatam 4.6.47 purport. Because the situation was discussing this because the whole world is full of people. Lord Shiva was being told not to go and kill Daksha, I think, because they had that squabble thing, and there was a whole big, massive fight. So then everybody went to talk to Lord Shiva. So I think it was in that context. So because the whole world is full of people who are envious and suffering anxiety, so they're speaking to him. Lord Shiva, a self-realized Vaishnava, was advised not to kill Daksha. A Vaishnava is described as Paraduka Duki, because although he is never distressed in any condition of life, he is distressed to see others in a distressed condition. Vaishnavas therefore should not try to kill by any action of the body or mind, but should try to revive the Krishna consciousness of others out of compassion for them. So this is Paraduka Duki. This is what we're aiming for. This is what we should strive for, that we are becoming free from anxiety. Not that we're not facing death anymore. We're facing death, old age, miseries, all kinds of things. But in a certain place inside, we can have freedom from anxiety about that because we know we're going back home, back to Godhead. We know we're not the body. We know we're our soul. As souls, we can't be harmed by these things. So even though we have to deal with them because we're in the body yet, we aren't really harmed by them, and we gradually come to understand that. So the level of stress goes down, and the level of peace goes up, and then we become able to feel the dukkha of others, dukkha, misery of others. So it's so funny though, so I don't duke it out with them. So anyways, isn't that funny joke? So anyway, we don't have to fight them, and we don't. Well, sometimes we have to. There has to be some proper action taken, but generally we don't try to kill. We try to help. Like Lord Chaitanya is actually Krishna, but when Jagai and Madai were acting up, and one of them threw the pottery at Lord Nityananda and cut him, Lord Chaitanya was going to just forget his whole mission of preaching and bring his chakra and cut off the head because of Lord Nityananda being hung. And Nityananda stopped him and said, no, your mission now is to preach and relieve people of these miseries and demonic tendencies. So if in this day and age, if you were to kill the demons, you have to kill everybody, because everybody's got a demon inside as well as a devotee inside. So we can't go around doing that. We would end our mission pretty quick. So we can, however, try to kill the demon by killing the propensity by giving something better, giving higher knowledge, giving higher taste, and not like that. So Paraduka Duki, we care about other people. We are compassionate sympathizers, it says here somewhere. Whichever place I read it. Compassionate sympathizers. So the word sympathy, the word compassion, and the word empathy are really closely entwined words. They're not identified. I have to look up empathy, but I think I did before. They all mean feeling with. Path means some kind of pathos, some kind of distress. Pathology is the study of disease, so pathos is some kind of distress. Sympathy is feeling with. You feel that distress. Feeling with.
Psychopath.
Psychopath is a different one, different word. So I'm talking about these words where we have some kind of sympathy or empathy or compassion. Compassion. Passion is feeling. Come is together. Compassion, feeling together with somebody. Empathy, when I looked it up, it's not always about suffering. Sometimes it's about a point of view. You can have empathy with somebody of a certain point of view because you can understand why they think that way. Maybe you think that way too, so you have some empathy. You understand how they think and you agree. Sympathy, you may not understand why they feel that way, but you feel their pain. And you feel sorry to feel that they have pain. So they're slightly different, but they're related. Sometimes people try to make a big difference between sympathy and empathy. We shouldn't give sympathy, we should give empathy. But you can't always give empathy because you don't always know why the person feels that way or what their opinions are and so on. You don't know if you agree with them or not. But at least if you see they're suffering, you can feel some sympathy, some compassion and sympathy. So sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other. So the main thing is paradukkha dukkhi. We should strive for this thing where we are more and more above this suffering ourselves because we have a higher knowledge. And we're more peaceful and more trusting in Krishna. And also straightening out our life enough so we're not causing the problems that people cause themselves. Giving up simple activities, giving up wrong behaviors, and then the reactions are slowing down. Then your life becomes more peaceful anyway. So paradukkha and dukkhi, feeling the suffering of others. So I'm going to stop here. Is there any? Yes. Sorry, he's always first. I know. And is next.
4th Canto, chapter 647, that verse you brought our attention to, the last paragraph is interesting. It says, a Vaishnava should a Vaishnava should follow the examples of such Vaishnavas as Hari Das Thakur, Nityananda Prabhu, and also Lord Jesus Christ. There is no need to kill anyone who has already been killed. But it should be noted herewith that a Vaishnava should not tolerate the blaspheming of Vishnu or Vaishnavas, although he should tolerate personal insults to himself.
Yeah, we should. So there are times we have to take action to protect others, devotees, or the principles of devotional service. Kavali?
I thought I heard you say something like, correct me because I wasn't sure. Did you say people that lived in Satya Yuga went back to Godhead, or did you say people that were demigods afterwards they go back?
Satya Loka. This is about Satya Loka, not Satya Yuga. Satya Loka is the highest planet, and that's Lord Brahma's planet. And it says here that there's no in that planet of Satya Loka, there's neither bereavement nor old age nor death, no pain of any kind, no anxieties, except they feel compassion for others who don't have this. So if you have all that freedom from pain and anxiety, so we were saying and Sri Devi agreed that we understand this to mean, and when Satya Loka, if you have made it up to living on Satya Loka, then you just go back to Godhead when there's devastation. Whereas other places you have to maybe go back into Mahavishnu, or unless you become a pure devotee like that.
How is that? I mean, what about do demigods live in Satya Yuga? No.
Well,
only devotees?
There's higher being like sages, living like sage level.
So after those, because they're worshiping Vishnu.
Yeah, they're worshiping Vishnu. They're Krishna conscious. The demigods have lower planets that are higher than Earth. Okay. Like Indraloka, for example.
So Satya Yuga Satya Loka is definitely...
It's Lord Brahma's.
Yeah, so Lord Brahma, are the demigods of his planet, or it's all Vishnu people?
Well, demigods are Vishnu people too.
I know, but there's the knowledge that we also have is that you can use up your pious credits and then fall down back to this state and be suffering in different births. Yeah. So if it's pious, go back to Godhead, I was just like, huh? I mean, it's
pious credits that pious credits that can be used up, not devotional service. So if they're doing devotional service, but they've come up to the sage level, they're that high in it, but not really, not like, I don't know, there are different levels. There's all kinds of, there's millions of varieties of different levels that souls can be at. But also, I remember now this is, I don't ever see how it's all put together, but when we first fall out of the spiritual, we go to the level of Brahma. And some people say that means the first thing you are is Brahma of the universe. But I don't believe that because also the way to become Brahma is to do your duty perfectly for 100 lifetimes. So he does have a planet, and others live there too. So apparently you can go down to that level and then get enamored of the modes of nature and the opportunities and gradually go lower. But if you are there by devotional service and you are fixed in your devotional service there, when it's all over and Satyaloka is finished along with all the rest of creation, you go back to Godhead from there. Does that make sense to you from your studies? Anybody else? Does that make sense?
There is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that says, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka, which means that all places in this universe are places of misery because there's birth and death. So, generally speaking, the people who are living on Brahma Loka or Satya Loka have achieved the highest form of, transcendental realization, and they're very pure transcendentalists. But then there are those who, at some point or other, there's still free will. So Krishna includes all the planets.
Yeah.
So, I'm not really clear exactly what you were saying as far as, but as far as the demigods go on their planets, there's so many different levels, and yes, they have a bank account of highest credits, and during that time, they can also turn to a higher truth and go to, Janaloka, Maraloka. There are other planets above Tapaloka. They're above the heavenly planets, Tapaloka, Janaloka, Maraloka, and then Satyaloka, like that. And they're like very advanced yogis or performing like tapas, like austerities, and very subtle life, and very long life, longer than the demigods. And then they can rise up to Satyaloka, and they're proceeding upward. But even then, there's always many a slip between the cup and the lip. It's William Shakespeare's.
What was that quote again?
Many a slip between the cup and the lip.
There's many a slip between the cup and the lip.
Right, it's from Shakespeare.
Yes.
I really appreciated the compassion of the Vaishnava. The fact that we are all struggling so much in this material world with the material energy, constantly, Durga Devi with her trident, constantly poke. And it is the Vaishnava compassion which has delivered us, Srila Prabhupada, and then our spiritual masters. The Vaishnava compassion is the only thing that is saving us. So, of course, we must also try to emulate that, and we must also try to give that to others. But I was just wondering, when we are suffering, it's hard to feel compassion for others because we are suffering so much. So, can you just explain how we can try to rise above that?
Well, you can step outside of your suffering to some degree. You can say, well, actually, this is not happening to me. I'm a soul. It's happening. My false ego says this is happening to me, and that's why I'm suffering. You can apply the philosophy to yourself, even in the midst of it, to some degree. I mean, now, of course, we get overwhelmed by emotion, but we can step out of it in our mind, and we can look at the philosophy and apply it. And we can also, because we're suffering, we can use that as that knowledge of how it feels to understand somebody else. So, all different ways we can say, okay, so I suffered this misery. I know what it is to be, poor, or stuck in the hospital, or in a car accident, or in a terrible relationship, or, I know what these things feel like, and so there's that other person, so I have some compassion. That's like real empathy. And we can see, well, I sometimes suffer, that person's suffering, I don't know why, but I'm sorry to see them suffering, that's more like sympathy. in my understanding of the two. But then we just apply the philosophy to understand that we are eternal spirit souls. We can't be burned, dried out, cut, killed. Nothing can be done to us as spirit souls, only because we identify with the body. Of course, when we're in the body, we have to solve something. If you've got no place to sleep tonight, for example, you do have something to solve. And it may take up your energy, realities. But still we have to, the more we're immersed in the philosophy, the more we're living in it, even when things happen. We have to try to live in it. Yeah.
It still doesn't give us license to do anything and everything because we can't be touched. We can't be cut.
Well, my gosh, only a perverted mind would come up. It's assumed that we're not taking license to.
So, because the soul suffers.
Yeah. Well, you suffer if you have to get another body and identify with that, and get another body and identify with that, and every time you got to experience this death thing, which is you're identifying with. So you don't want that. It just gets in the way of ever knowing Krishna. So of course we don't want to take advantage of this. Nothing can happen to the soul because we will then immediately be put into illusion, and it will feel like it's happening to us, and we'll suffer.
And you're perpetually on death row.
Yeah, you're perpetually on death row. So we have to apply the philosophy. We have to immerse ourselves in the philosophy and try to live there by our intelligence. Yeah.
So what I'm about to say, I want to say really carefully, because I don't have any quote shastrically from Prabhupada or our scriptures, but if you study what Muhammad preached and what the Muslims feel is the ultimate goal of heaven, it sounds like a heavenly planet. Mm-hmm. And also like he was communicated to by Gabriel, an archangel, from a heavenly planet. And then some other people have indicated some things according to the Lord Jesus Christ. And the prophet said he was Shakti-based avatar, but I saw a whole discussion once, and I didn't mention it. But anyway, the point is that some religions, some of the religions or isms that we now are on the planet at this moment, in this age, may be the result of the kind of person that is referred to here, or soul that's referred to here, whether Muhammad came from Brahmaloka or Indraloka or one of those heavenly planets. He obviously had compassion for the fallen souls in this age and came down to teach them how to become more moral so they could rise up to a better standard of living. But it doesn't actually, if the ultimate goal is to go to heaven and have 72 virgins, that's not exactly what we call transcendental.
Yeah.
I don't mean any disrespect.
It's just a better neighborhood.
We sometimes confuse because we have, like most of us came from, say, the Christian background. So we have this idea of God and heaven and Jesus, and we have this idea of what love is in that level of understanding, and we may still have some sentimental attachment to some of those feelings, whereas if we analyze it with the strict philosophical understanding, there are two heavens blended into one in the Christian teaching. One is to go and be with God, and one is to go and enjoy reward. And they are clearly distinguished from one another in Vaishnava teaching because the philosophy is real detailed. Whereas in the Christian thing, they're sort of blended, so then you don't have the tools to understand how to seek the highest. So, yeah, it can become confusing. It can become confused, and some devotees bring that confusion in, don't realize that they bring it with them in the Vaishnava path.
And also, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the confusion I've always felt was because there's the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is, actually the Torah, and that's what the Jews, that's their scripture, but it's also part of the Christian thing. So there's a lot of, when you read some of the Torah of the Old Testament, it's a very elevated analysis of the material world, the karma kanda, like Ecclesiastes, like what Jayadurga Maharaj did with Vanity Karma. It's an incredible book. Won an award that 1 year, about a year ago, for the best religious novel of the year. And it's an incredible analysis of Ecclesiastes. And when you read that, and then you go back and read Ecclesiastes, you realize how much like of our popular culture comes from Ecclesiastes. A lot of Bob Dylan songs, of Pete Seeger's, so many of our expressions come from Ecclesiastes. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that there is that confusion about what is heaven and what is Vaikuntha. And it's like Prabhupada said, first you have to become, right now we're dvipada, we're two-legged animals. And we have to become human beings. And Jesus basically came to make them human beings. Because they're like Prabhupada used to say, why would they say, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, don't commit adultery? That's because that's what they were doing. And in the Quran, it says, don't sleep with your mother. Now that could be taken as a broader sense that they say all women's mothers, but it means that they're preaching, that's what they were, the class of man that they were speaking to. I'm not, again, the prayers in the Quran are extremely beautiful, compassionate, loving prayers. And so I'm not trying to divide anything, just trying to understand it myself in terms of our understanding of the cosmos. There's the earthly planets, there's the house planets, there's heavenly planets, then there's these very advanced planets, like I mentioned, Tapaloka, Marloka, Janaloka, then there's Satyaloka, then Brahmajyoti and Vaikuntha and Goloka. And you can go to heaven, but you can come back. And it's easier here on the earth planet because it's not all heavenly and it's not all hellish. You get moderation.
You don't get distracted by how wonderful and
How beautiful and wonderful it is, and it's not so incredibly oppressively awful that you can't think. Prabhupada once looked outside his window and he was crying. He saw these people going through the trash looking for food. That was the birth of spiritual life. He said, you can't preach to a man who's hungry. You have to feed him. Then you can preach to him. And that's my point.
I thought I had another point too. I can't remember to save my life, so maybe I didn't. I'll remember tomorrow.
So some of the best preaching will probably be after the feast in New Orleans.
True.
Well,
So. Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you all very much. Okay, then all bless to Sri Prabhupada, all bless to Sri